there's one man who can help, if there's one man who can help, it's the man coming in here right now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the 2003 FMA Fan Guide, the Fullmetal Alchemist Friday series, which is part of a podcast made Full Metal. It's going to be roughly an episode for every week of the year, about 52 episodes if we include the movie. Although I don't always get it up there on time, it's usually Fridays at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Today we're talking about episodes 11 and 12, The Other Elric Brothers, parts 1 and 2. So basically, the Elric brothers head to the city, which has been plagued by a lot of sickness going around, of course, looking for the Philosopher's Stone. They hear of a Philosopher's Stone that's almost complete. However, a lot of the people don't seem to believe that they're the Elric brothers, because apparently the Elric brothers have already arrived. And it turns out there's another pair of brothers who are also alchemists who are helping to finish their father's research for basically another evil bureaucrat, captain of industry type, to try and make a red stone, which is basically an incomplete Philosopher's Stone. However, there is a byproduct of it, which is the creation of this red water, which is running underground beneath the city in these caverns, and the fumes are kind of causing up and sort of making the area toxic. Although the fake Elric brothers don't really want to stop performing the research and kind of get into conflict with Ed and Al, they eventually do realize through the help of the brothers that their father kind of stopped this research essentially because of the side effects, and they stop wanting to work with this evil gentleman named Mugir, who of course it turns out has been manipulated by lust in an attempt to once again try to create the Philosopher's Stone. However, of course, Ed and Al defeat him and save the day. It's also in this episode that we learn about Dr. Marco, who apparently came to the town and started healing people with his alchemy. So it kind of drops the seed of that plot point there. My overall feelings on this one, it's actually very mixed. I was going to go into recording this kind of saying, okay, we finally come to a series of episodes that actually kind of make me mad at this point, because I remember I had been watching these fairly recently with a friend of mine as we were going through them, but it was at this point, kind of after The Phantom Thief, which started to annoy me a little bit for seeming kind of derivative in a way. With this two-parter, it seemed really redundant, because we, of course, do have some world building again, but once again we have essentially the Elric brothers going to another town and being heroes of the people with kind of a more standalone adventure, which is fine, looking at class struggles and the political aspect and whatnot, establishing the brothers as folk heroes. I don't really mind that, but we've basically seen similar riffs on similar themes in similar stories quite a few times at this point. Plus, the fact that we've kind of once again hammered together the theme of the aspects of science and alchemy that we have to be cautious about, which of course is one of the big themes of the show, and we're seeing smaller pockets of it before we get to the main plot. But this one seems really redundant and on the nose because we're already following two young brothers who are following in the steps of their father's research and their father's ideas to try and make up for previous mistakes and learn about the issues of dabbling in things they probably shouldn't and coming of age. And they're literally two brothers that are mistaken as them. It's just, there's symbolism and then there's just incredibly blatant stuff that just seems to just be kind of lazy by comparison, because it's just incredibly obvious. The show is rarely subtle with its themes, and anime rarely is in general, but this one just seems like, okay, we're basically just cloning the main plot and the main characters for this side story. That being said, the episodes themselves are still fine. This is still Fullmetal Alchemist. It's still fairly well put together as a two-parter. And I can't really say skip it, because we do get the beats of Dr. Marco, who, his notes are still a rather important and I would say crucial aspect of the plot going forward. And the fact that we learn that lust is behind it kind of establishes the homunculi as still those shadowy villains who are manipulating these other alchemists to their own ends. So there is some plot building, there is some world building, but I just think hammering home the themes with just some really obvious symbolism. I don't even know if it's symbolism if we just do the same thing exactly again as a mirror image. I know that plenty of episodes and shows and stories do that, and that's fine, just showing the dichotomy between two people, but Usually they're not so obvious. So I was really tempted to give this one a 5 just because those aspects of it honestly kind of annoyed me. But I give it a 6 because it's still fairly well done and there are some important aspects. I can't say skip it, but it's almost there. So it's probably the weakest with the Phantom Thief thus far, though I think we're going to be getting into some really good stuff soon. I would say these episodes are probably my least favorites with the Phantom Thief thus far. All the episodes that I've talked about on the podcast thus far, I watched about 7, 8, 9 months ago when I was trying to go through it with my friend Nick, and now I finally caught up, and so the newer episode reviews are going to be very, very fresh, so there might be even more energy, hopefully. But I'm still going to try to keep up with that schedule, more than likely. I typically like to watch things and digest them and ponder them and analyze them, which is why I often do full series reviews years after the fact, instead of doing episode reviews like this until it's a show that's been on for a long time. That's just my style. But you might actually hear some more fresh reactions as I haven't seen some of these episodes in years. So it should be, I'm thinking, a different tone, hopefully positive for the podcast going forward. My favorite Full Metal moment is probably just the fight at the end and the concept of the red water. I just think has some interesting imagery, and the red stone just seems like an iconic symbol, a piece of iconic imagery for the show. When I would think of the red stone, just the incomplete philosopher's stone, which just seems to kindle these ideas of all these scientists and alchemists pursuing something for their own personal needs and never being able to quite attain it because they can't go too far or they go about it the wrong way, which is just something that I think is very indicative of Full Metal Alchemist in general. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening and following along. Please let me know what you thought of these episodes. If you liked them more than I did, or if I missed something important, please let me know in the comments. Until then, I'll probably see you in a Friday or two. In the meantime, stay magical.